For those who, I'm super excited to meet you at this meeting and hopefully see you at future events as well. So before we get started, I would just like to do a quick land acknowledgement. So I think it's extremely important that we acknowledge that we cannot begin to discuss disarmament, barriers to access and care, sustainability, peace practices without recognizing the role that colonialization, white supremacy, and racism, including medical racism, play in the social structures within which healthcare, conflict resolution, and sustainability are situated in. So when we discuss global health and safety, we cannot forget to think about and care for how these issues exist on a national and local level, starting with ensuring that all Indigenous peoples in Canada and around the world are able to have access to proper, accessible healthcare and a voice at the table in discussions about conflict resolution, sustainability, and peace. So I'd like today to kind of call upon everyone here, my colleagues and friends, to join me in ongoing efforts towards reconciliation by committing to learn and grow in a manner that will honor our diverse communities and peoples, no matter where we are from and no matter in which settings we hold space. I encourage everyone to definitely, I know we're located all around the world, to learn more about the land on which you reside and to join us in these efforts. So thank you so much. And thank you, a huge thank you to Monalisa, who's our keynote speaker today. We are super, super excited to have Monalisa speak. I'm going to give a quick introduction, but before I even begin that, I just want to say a huge thank you and acknowledge the fact that Monalisa is like tuning in from India, where it is 5:30 in the morning for her. So a huge thank you for coming to speak to the IPPNWC members and as well as just the general public who's really interested in these issues and who wants to engage with these topics and really learn from your expertise. So a quick introduction before we dive into your presentation. So Monalisa Hazarika is one of the UN Youth Champions for Disarmament and currently works as a consultant for the Scrap Weapons Project of SOAS University London. She holds an MA in Conflict Management and Development and has formerly worked at the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute and Forum on the Arms Trade. Her focus is on small arms and organized crime, especially improvised and craft-produced firearms and their trends in illicit manufacture and trade, and previously has worked on the correlations between the illicit trafficking of small arms and narco-insurgency in South and Southeast Asia. She's also interested in the nexus between emerging technologies and conventional weapons, particularly concerning additive manufacturing. Previously, Monalisa participated in the Leaders for Tomorrow and Leaders to Future projects conducted by the UN Office for Disarmament Affairs, which is part of the Youth for Disarmament Initiative. So let's all clap and welcome Monalisa. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Daria, and greetings, everyone. My name is Monalisa Hazarika. I am one of the UN Youth Champions for Disarmament under UNODA's Youth for Disarmament Initiative, and I currently work as a consultant for the Scrap Weapons Project at SOAS University London. First off, I would like to thank the IPPNW Canada for the very kind invitation, and my dear colleague and friend, Executive Director Leah Holla, for considering me for the same. Today, I will be speaking about small arms and light weapons proliferation and misuse, a bit on craft-produced weapons, the normative framework around these weapons, but also a particular focus on the UN Program of Action, and my upcoming research on craft-produced weapons in South Asia with a case study of Manipur's improvised mortars. I've prepared a few slides to guide our discussions, but and I promise to keep my intervention under 30 minutes. So let me share my screen. Can you all see it? Yeah. Okay, so let's begin. Now, what exactly are small arms and light weapons? So there is no legal or universally accepted definition of small arms and light weapons, SAL, and government publication, technical manuals, and national legislations, or even the multilateral instruments define SAL in different contexts and purposes, meaning there will be inconsistency between them. And despite the benefits of precise and consistent use of terminology, the erroneous use of terms related to weapons and ammunition is common. To address these issues, there are some internationally agreed definitions of SOL, which have been developed over the years. Here are the three most authoritative or most commonly used. The one with the UN Panel of Action, the UN Panel of Government Expert on Small Arms and Light Weapons of 1997, the Firearms Protocol that came out in 2005, and the International Tracing Instrument also of 2005. It's also part of the UN Program of Action. Now, the International Tracing Instrument, ITI, is considered to be the most authoritative definition. And according to the ITI, it defines small arms and light weapons as any man-portable lethal weapon that expels or launches, is designed to expel or launch, or may be converted to expel or launch a shot, a bullet, or a projectile by the action of an explosives, excluding antique small arms and light weapons or their replicas. What does it mean? Let's break it down. Small arms are, broadly speaking, any weapon that are designed for individual use. So something that can be carried by one person. So this includes revolvers, self-loading pistols, rifles, carbines, submachine guns, assault rifles, and light machine guns. And light weapons, on the other hand, are also, broadly speaking, weapons that are designed for use by 2 or 3 persons who serve as a crew. And some of the examples are heavy machine guns, handheld under-barrel mounted grenade launchers, portable anti-craft guns, portable anti-tank and recoilless guns, launchers, anti-tank missiles and rocket systems, portable launchers, and mortars of calibers less than 100 millimeters. So for visualization, I'm adding the ARCUS classification. So this is the classification schema developed by ARES, which is an organization based in the UK, and ARCUS, ARCS, that stands for the Arms and Munition Classification System. It follows a more comprehensive review of all the different classification schemes that are out there and have come up with a more universally applicable nomenclature. I like to follow this because it has a more granular technical definition that I can rely upon. And I find this to be the most useful when I'm trying to understand or trying to put a certain weapon into one of these categories. So as you can see in this diagram, small arms can be divided broadly into handgun and long guns. And then there are these different divisions based on the class, group, type, subtypes, and method of operation. So this makes things much easier because all of these different definitions that I've mentioned for the UN panel report of 1997 or the Firearms Protocol, all of these definitions define SOL based on maybe technical features or based on portability. But the ARCUS classification schema uses the technical features, which I find to be the most efficient way. So yeah, here's another one on light weapons. Like you can see, light guns, light power munition, other light weapons, and light directed energy weapons. It's all still a bit confusing to me, but also super exciting and super interesting. Okay, now what are these weapons of widespread destruction, and why are small arms and light weapons proliferation concerning? When the rule of law is replaced by the barrel of a gun, there is very little opportunity to recover and rebuild. Small arms and light weapons are lethal, easy to use, and difficult to trace when not properly marked and without record-keeping and tracing capabilities of national authorities. Given the relative ease of concealment, transport, and maintenance, they remain in circulation for a very long time and are available across gray, white, and black markets. In certain societies, small arms are a result of unique, deep-rooted identities and values, grounded in local belief systems that are part and parcel of the political and social order. Former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan called them the real weapons of mass destruction, which is no exaggeration and holds true even today, given their perpetual use in both wartime and peacetime situations. While, of course, not capable of obliterating entire cities like WMDs does, they're known to cause what is referred to by some experts as individual destruction, given their cross-sectional and mutually reinforcing relation with organized crime, terrorism, gender equality, and human rights violations. This positions them at an intersectional priority for armed control, disarmament, violence prevention, human rights and humanitarian law, the SDGs, economic development, and criminality, each perspective advancing a differing lens and solution to the problems. A symbol of masculinity and a power for some, Sol proliferation and availability is only one piece of a complex and dynamic puzzle and cannot be treated as a traditional disarmament and arms control issue, evading just one solution or one policy intervention. Rather, it's a cluster of issues with complex linkages between differing elements and regional dynamics, where manifested ground realities of the problems must be considered to understand the issue better. Often a politically contentious issue, they are wielded as tools to undergird and maintain power. And while SOL are a legitimate tool for state security, their licit and illicit production, proliferation, and misuse have presented a novel set of issues, with their availability being only one part of the problem. Now, the direct effects, such as facilitating and exacerbating armed conflict, commissioning serious human rights violation, hindering humanitarian assistance operations, or weakening governance, are just are the more manifested causes and are stipulated in policy consideration. Their cumulative indirect impacts are harder to measure and assess. This includes an array of opportunity costs incurring from overburdening medical system, privatization of violence, brewing gun culture, large-scale refugee flows, divestment on economic fronts, and also a culture of impunity. By broadening our understanding of the relationship between people and their demand for SOL, our efforts at monitoring and evaluating the efficacy of existing regulations can be realized. Now, coming on to non-industrial weapons and some of the terminologies that are out there of what exactly are non-industrial weapons, or how we like to call it, craft-produced weapons. Now, in addition to the legal production via complex manufacturing process, the demand for non-industrial manufacturing of SOL is sustained by actors who fashion them as their weapon of choice, given their anonymity, cost effectiveness, and their accessibility, among other reasons. Improvised and craft-produced small arms and light weapons are weapons illicitly produced or assembled for components or parts that are illegally acquired or produced without the license from a competent government authority outside or under limited state control. Now, they are fabricated largely by hand and range from rudimentary, very crude single-shot guns to more advanced, semi-professionally manufactured copies of conventional firearms. They're devoid of any marking, serial numbers, registrations, and other tracing mechanisms, and are commonly employed by individuals and groups who do not have access to their industrial factory-made counterparts. Although they seem to be economically insignificant, they are an important source of low-cost weapons in many regions across the world, especially for the geographically isolated and legally prohibited buyers. Their unusual forensic profile, given the use of innocuous materials for their production, impedes methods of tracing, making investigations a Herculean task. While there may be regional variation in products and the technology used, the uniformity in its lethality and intended use is undeniable. They're typically produced in private workshops, homes, garages, huts, or backyards in smaller quantities by recycling spare parts or remnants of more sophisticated arms or mundane items. And despite being a global phenomena, the fragmented nature of the information on their value and volume hinders an informed assessment of their incidence and current usage in society. Craft-produced weapons also lack a universally agreed definition or terminology that are outside the purview of most internationally agreed definitions of SALT that I just mentioned, the 1997 report, the Firearms Protocol, and the ITI. While there are no explicit mention, the 1997 report describes homemade weapons as those including those referred to as zip guns, and are designed and are simple to design, can be constructed by unskilled people with little knowledge of such weapons. The material used may be found in almost every house or rubbish dump, and I'm quoting this. And any available type of ammunition can be modified to fit these weapons. Now, perhaps the most recent definition or attempt at trying to address this is the 2015 UNODC, which is the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime, study of firearms, which defines rudimentary or craft arms as artisanal or homemade firearms, or any firearm that are assembled with parts and components manufactured for another utility or belonging to other firearms. And there are also a lot of definitions on illicit. What does illicit manufacturing mean? Is it from parts and components that are illicitly trafficked, the ones that are produced without a license or authorization from a competent authority, or without marking the firearms by the manufacturer? So there is an array of mentions, but there is no solid definition of what exactly are these weapons. And here I've shared some of the most common terminology that is used to mean the non-industrial weapons, which are artisanal, improvised, craft-produced, homemade, workshop-made. All of this depends on the country and the region that is reporting on these issues, which keeps it interesting and also very confusing, because sometimes what an authority might mean artisanal may not mean improvised to somebody else. So yeah, acknowledging these interchangeable terminologies, I prefer to use the umbrella term non-industrial weapons, because it's more of a catch-all term for all like craft-produced weapons, and to mean illicit production. Now, coming on to craft production in South Asia. Illicit arms production in South Asia, notably India and Pakistan, has colonial roots and have found its way through the post-colonial period. And they have been a thriving cottage industry since the British era, which were centers of weapons production to fight colonial rule, some even dating back to the medieval kingdoms. Now, the most popular and the often cited example of traditional centers of the industry are the Darad and Khel in Pakistan's northwest frontier province, and the production hubs across northern India. And in India, illicit production occurs in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, so most of North India, and some parts of South India, like Coimbatore and Tamil Nadu. Now, numerous clandestine factory manufacturing guns, pistols, revolvers, and hand grenades are operating in different parts of India. And some researchers suggest that gun making seems to be one of the largest thriving industries, especially in the village areas. In terms of Pakistan, Dara is the heart of Pakistan's notorious arms bazaar, which is where one can acquire illicit replicas and counterfeits of practically any small arms desired at a low cost, from Kalashnikovs, M16, Uzis, and even guns hidden in like walking sticks and ballpoint pens. Some are originals left from the war in Afghanistan, and others are copies made in the back alley workshops, or are repaired originals or assembled from parts and components from originals. The Daraz gunsmiths are famous for their skills and expertise, and this knowledge is passed down from generations, including some of the local designs and mostly the counterfeit techniques to the very last detail. Now, another example is Bangladesh, where most of the illicit arms manufacturing factories are floating units, meaning that the machinery can be set up and dismantled within a very short period of time, and are made on small boats, which runs on maybe rivers or strong streams, and allows the gunsmith to evade law enforcement and also dismantle whenever there is a raid. Also, please keep in mind that these research are very old, closer to when I was born. So it's pretty old, and there's been no recent literature on these practices. But they're also very useful to kind of reflect on what has been the norm for so many years. Now, locally made in abandoned houses, rented properties, and small workshops that have lathe machines, some of which I guess the popular examples would be locally made shotguns, pipe guns, and cut rifles, which ranges from anywhere between 5,000 to 15,000 Bangladeshi taka. So it's quite cheap if you think about it. And also they depend on their reliability and sophistication. As an example, I have added a picture of a desi katta on your right, which is a picture, which is basically like a single shot gun. You need to load it every time you fire, and it fires just one bullet. So for those who want a clean and economical shooting job with tools that are simply does the job and the traces of which can never be found, a katta is the archetypical candidate. Now sold for around 2,000 to 5,000 Indian rupees. They are made using scrap metal components like cylindrical tubes from old cycles, a nail as a firing pin, and other very easily accessible household items. It's operable for a very few shots. Some say 20, some say 2,000. It depends on the expertise of the gunsmith who's making them. And even then, there's a high risk of misfire and failed shots. But it's a perfect low commitment investment for the beginner criminals and new recruits in the criminal syndicates. There are also regional varieties of the desi katta across South Asia. Some you can find in Bangladesh, some in Nepal, but also there's like slight variation in the nomenclature and the parts that I use. Now, coming on to the case study, like I promised, I'll be talking about the small arms proliferation in Manipur. It's a topic very close to my heart and the overall work that I do in this field. I would like to talk about how assault proliferation in Manipur is impacting its residents and the entire region in general. So yeah. First off, to briefly contextualize the topic and also provide a background to the issue, here is a map of India with the northeastern region in focus. Now, the northeastern India is a peripheral border region that shares 98% of its border internationally with China, Bhutan, Myanmar, Nepal, and Bangladesh. And only 2% is connected to quote-unquote mainland by a 21-kilometer strip of land at the Siliguri corridor that you can see in the map there, popularly known as the Chicken Neck. I'm based at the Pinrap, that red I'm based in the state of Assam in Guwahati, but the section highlighted in yellow is the state of Manipur. So it's pretty close to home. The region is inhabited by over 250 indigenous communities, which have their own unique languages and customs. And also to note that Northeast India in general has the highest concentration of indigenous communities and tribes in the entire country. Important here is also the fact that the violence in this region is an archival product of colonial and neo-colonial negligence and several insurgent groups that have been operating in the region since the independence of our country back in 1947. Now, this has led to a perpetual, quote-unquote, low-intensity conflict status that has, over the years, normalized violence and resulted in the government imposing a variety of stringent policies and acts, some more inhuman than others, while those efficacy is debatable given the steady flow of arms and drugs across the state. Now, if you look closely on the map, it's very close to the Golden Triangle, meaning there's a steady flow of arms and drugs that are coming across and through the border. And over the years, while the situation has somewhat returned to normal, while citizens can carry on with their lives, every now and then the situation kind of tips off the edge and keeps getting worse. And on the right, you can see a map of Manipur and how close it is to the Myanmar border. Okay, now, all of this, which I just said, is an important precursor to help you understand the violence in the state that has been going on since last year. This post-apocalyptic picture that you see here are from the riots that broke out in Manipur on 3rd May 2023 in response to the Manipur High Court ruling of 4th April, which, acting on a writ petition, ordered the state government to submit recommendations on granting tribal status to the Meitei group. Now, Manipur's population, if I can explain it very plainly, is 50% population are from the Meitei groups, who are predominantly Hindus, and the 40% are tribal groups, which are a mixed batch of Kukis, Nagas, Zod, Hamar, and other indigenous communities. So this ruling resulted in violent clashes between the tribals and non-tribal groups. And just in the past year, it has resulted in an estimated death toll of over 250 people, with 96 unclaimed bodies, of course, pending official records, and more than 70,000 internally displaced people. Now, these data that I'm saying are from earlier this year when I wrote a blog on this, but of course, this has probably changed by now because the violence is still ongoing and it's been 1 year since it broke out. Now, in India, reporting on this issue was mostly limited to the regional news outlets and occasional national media mentions. But all of this changed when the video of 2 Manipuri women from the Kuki tribe being tortured and raped and paraded around naked on the streets went viral on social media on July 2023. You can see one of the news clippings of another horrific and shameful case that came out in July last year, when the pictures on videos of severed heads of men lined up on spikes were circulated. So it's a very disturbing and also very sad issue that's happening in the state. In a press conference on January 11, 2024, the Chief of Army Staff claimed to have recovered 30% of the estimated 5,600 arms and over 650,000 ammunition that were previously looted from local police stations and state armories. I think the most recent was in February from the 5th Indian Reserve Battalion Station back in February, yeah. Now, there are some speculations on where these weapons are coming from, in addition to the ones that are looted from the government stockpiles. But there's this huge research gap that we can't say for sure how much weapon has been looted or trafficked and how many are in circulation among civilians. These pictures that I have shared here are derived from publicly accessible first information reports, FIR reports, and the notifications shared by Manipur Police and Assam Rifles, who regularly share visual evidence for public record on their Twitter account. And these are not one-time instances. If you look at their Twitter account, every day they post all these pictures of what they have recovered, what they have seized, and who they have arrested. So it's quite daunting and quite scary of what they find every single day. But yeah, among the weapons recovered, and you can see here on the pictures, the Insast rifle, the 9mm pistols, the 762 SLR, the AK type rifles, the number 36 hand grenades, 51mm and 81mm mortar. Sorry, and also the 303 rifles are the common seized weapons. And there are also a few Chinese hand grenades and Japanese revolvers and M4 carbines that were found. This points to the inefficient physical security stockpile management and the lack of record keeping for the weapons that have been lost or diverted from the official stockpiles. Something else that I have noticed is the inconsistency in reporting and describing these weapons. For example, there are an erroneous use of the caliber of certain weapons or a mismatched terminology used for similar weapons that were seized across maybe different dates. And of course, all of these data are from the state police. So you expect them to maybe have a similar kind of reporting structure, but if you pay close attention to the Twitter account, it's not the case. Now, interestingly, weapons and related ammunition are not the only force multipliers retrieved. The police have also since intercepted drugs, a variety of drugs, heroin powder, alprazolam tablets, caffeine, crystal meth, brown sugar, gold tablets, gold dust, and also have destructed acres of poppy cultivation. I probably don't have that slide here. I must have taken that out, but like I said, the Twitter account has like a very good detailed record of what has been seized and the extent to which it's going to be a problem in the coming years. Now, my favorite part, talking about weapons and how they are made. So improvised mortars. This is what a mortar looks like, in case you're wondering. This is a picture that I took from Small Arms Survey, and of course, the gun that you see at the bottom of the right picture is what is a locally made improvised mortar. The name is Pompey gun. So mortars are smooth bore, meaning that they don't have rifling in the barrel, muzzle loading light weapons, which typically comprises of a simple barrel or tube, a stabilizing base plate, and a bipod for support. Now, as a form of light artillery, they are designed to engage targets beyond a user's line of sight and are employed as a long-range, indirect fire infantry support weapon. Broadly, there are three categories of crew portable mortar. They are light, medium, heavy, which fires projectile, also known as shells or bombs, of caliber ranging from 50 to 120 millimeter. Now, these projectiles or mortar rounds have aerodynamically shaped warheads with fin propulsion trails, like these ones that are wrapped in yellow. But yeah, they are dropped down from the barrel, initiating their propellant charge and fire on an impact which is fixed, the firing pin that are fixed at the base, and are only capable of firing at high angle trajectories above 45 degrees. Now, Pompey guns are the improvised mortar systems, the locally made in Manipur. Its origin dates back to 1917-18, when they were crafted with indigenous, easy-to-use materials to fight the British colonial rule. Now, the knowledge of their production process and ammunition sourcing has been passed down from generations, especially among the Kuki tribal groups, with modifications done in recent times to make use of the new available tech. Pompey guns have been a recurring find among the weapons seized from the ongoing conflict, as you see in the slide before this. And state police records suggest that there are of different varieties. This one, for example, doesn't have like a wooden casing or a wooden mount, but there are some pictures that suggest that they have some sort of a casing, a plank of a structure to, I guess, which works like the tripod. It's still an ongoing research, and it's just fragmented information that I'm trying to find. But yeah, these mortar barrels are constructed from heavy steel piping and are often mounted on a steel frame, and they may project standard military mortar rounds or purpose-made improvised mortar rounds, which are maybe repurposed gas cylinders filled with explosive and fragmentations or any other improvised explosive or incendiary chemical munitions. They're generally fabricated from a mixture of improvised and available military components, and it's very difficult to say for certain the exact caliber of these weapons, given their homemade status and also a lack of access to proper documentation. Now, what is the UNPOA and the Fourth Review Conference, RefCon4? Now, small arms and light weapons are regulated under differing national norms that modulate their possession, manufacture, transfer, and use, and are well within the scope of existing multilateral treaties, instruments, and regional arrangements. The notable international instruments are the UN Program of Action, UNPOA, which the entire thing goes as UN Program of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons, to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects, and the International Tracing Instrument. So the ITI is part of the POA. So we have the POA, we have the Firearms Protocol, and also the Arms Trade Treaty, under which the method of production is irrelevant. So whether or not it's craft produced doesn't matter, as long as it's small arms and light weapons. Further, reporting on their management and tracking is included in the UN Comtrade and the UNROCA databases, which promotes transparency and accountability among states. Perhaps the most important is the UN POA, adopted by UN member states in 2001. Now, it provides a framework for activities to counter the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons, and is a political commitment, meaning it's not legally binding. Byproducts of the UN POA include the International Tracing Instrument, ITI, and the recommendations of the Group of Governmental Experts on Arms Brokering. It assembles every 6 years for a review conference, and every 2 years for a biennial meeting of states to report on their progress in implementing the commitments, and also deliberating on novel and pressing issues relating to illicit trade and SALT. Now, as a UN Youth Champion for Disarmament, I had the privilege of attending the first week of the 4th Review Conference in New York. And here's me and 3 of my colleagues from the program who attended the various side events and press briefings, and we are posing with the amazing Ambassador Maritza Chan Valverde, who was the president. Now, the POA has been criticized for not staying relevant in a world where new technologies are developing at a rapid speed ahead of regulation efforts, which creates this big regulatory gap. The member states should be considering how to address the regulatory challenges posed by polymer components, modular designs, and additive manufacturing, which also is known as 3D printing, as well as the use of online platforms to facilitate the illicit small arms trade. I was happy to see that the issue of illicit manufacturing and craft-produced weapons were a recurring topic, and a majority of the member states acknowledge and raise this issue in their remarks to the plenary. But discussions on new technology, especially 3D printing, is still a very still has a very technical focus. Also, besides the concern over the misuse of technology to accelerate SALT proliferation in terms of 3D printing, states have explored how new technologies can provide them with opportunities to strengthen the implementation of POA and ITI, including the use of software and scanners. Now, during this consultation, the state deliberated language of the zero draft, and pushback was seen over language on climate change, ammunition, diversion, masculinity, youth, and also the inclusion and reference to other frameworks, including the Global Framework for Through Life Conventional Ammunition Management, and a few other assistance programs. Now, the final outcome document recognizes gender roles and has a very strong language on the gender dimension, including the need for disaggregated data on gender-based violence, expectations of women and men to acquire illicit arms, public and mental health concern, and also refers to the gender-responsive policies instead of gender sensitive, as it was in the bilateral meeting of states number 8. Even if it was watered down, according to some scholars, references to environment in the final document illustrates a new perspective being addressed. Also, the outcome also refers to the adoption of the global framework and establishes a new body of work with the open-ended technical expert group, which I think is a big win, because states have consistently trying to avoid language on ammunition, that too for 23 years. So now that the negotiation and consultations are over, all that matters is how states implement the same at the national levels. I think I've spoken for too long. So to wrap up, I would like to mention that there are several multilateral regional instruments, such as the Wassenaar Agreement on Export Control and Conventional Arms and Dual-Use Goods. For example, in Africa, we have the ECOWAS Convention, the SADC Protocol, the Nairobi Protocol, the Kinshasa Convention, all of which regulates SOL. For Americas, I think we have the CIFTA, the CARICOM. For Arab states, we have their common positions. In the Asia Pacific, which is a big cluster of countries, we sadly have just the NADI framework. In Europe, we have the OSCE documents, the EU strategies to combat accumulation of small arms and light weapons ammunition, and also other bilateral or maybe multilateral arrangements. But yeah, that's all from me, and thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Monalisa. I think just huge round of applause. From I think I see a lot of people clapping. I see a lot of emojis being put on screen. Thank you so much. I mean, aside from providing a really interesting overview of kind of your past experiences or the past several weeks at the UN, I think also just thank you for providing us such an amazing foundation of kind of the work that you do and the incredible research that you do. I'm truly both unbelievably inspired to learn more about this, but also just it's your work is absolutely incredible. So thank you so much again from all of us. It's just so amazing to have you here.